back to the NCMU podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up the next generation of nerd culture ministers and missionaries. My name is Mark from Lux Digital Church, and with me today, I have our third and final staff member who's going to be on this podcast. We have another staff member, Sam. I think she's been on the show at some point. Maybe her and Drew have been. But we have Gregg with us today, our very own Gregg Miller. Gregg, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I can't tell you the last time I was actually on like a podcast. So I have to get into the groove of like the recording like pace and yeah, it'll be cool though. I'm excited.
I mean, we have known each other for a really long time, A. Mm-hmm. B, you've worked for Lux longer than I have, technically. And I've done a lot of podcasts in the last 4 years. And we've never podcasted together, I don't think.
No, I think the closest thing that we've come to is like the couch time during service. Yeah. I think that's the closest thing that we've done to having like a podcast rapport, like back and forth.
Yeah, you've been in the room like working a lot while I've been doing other podcasts.
Yes,
it's just like
I just get the inside scoop. Yeah,
you get one side. You get a one-sided scoop, is what you get.
Yeah, which is funny because like I piece together like what you're talking about, and it's almost like a game for me. Like I know most of the time who you're talking to, and then I'm just kind of like trying to imagine what their responses are. Yeah, maybe that's bad for assumptions, but I've been pretty accurate so far. So
perfect. Yeah. Well, this podcast, pretty laid back. We love to have conversations around calling and people stepping into ministry. But this season, I've done something a little different in interviewing some of the staff members at Lux. So we had Pastor Dalton on talking about community, Pastor Andy talking about branding and brand recognition and building a following, that sort of thing. I wanted to have you on, Gregg, because, a lot of the way that people have experienced Lux over the last 4 years, whether they realize it or not, they've experienced at least a portion of it through your lens, right? Through the work that you've done, through the time and energy that you put in. Gregg came on in, was it April of 2021? When did we start? March? Yeah. So you were on in April, yeah. I think, like a month later. He came on in April of 2021 as our video director, overseeing our cameras and equipment, like learning all of that stuff. But more than that, also doing a lot of our video editing, social content. Originally, some of that stuff has now been spread out, but design, a lot of like the early on graphic design and things was Gregg also did. So Gregg, tell us a little bit about yourself. Help us to get to know you and, what got you into photography, videography, design, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those stories where I'm sure I could go in any number of directions. So I'll try to summarize a little bit. But well, first of all, about myself, my name is Gregg, obviously, but I'm from the Pittsburgh area, and that's how you and I have met. Is that I grew up going to the youth group that you were the youth pastor of, and then eventually I became an adult, and then I started going to college. You mentored me throughout college, and that was, something that kept us connected post high school. And so that's how I got involved with Lux. But as far as myself, I've been a believer for most of my life. I came to know Jesus really whenever I was about 8 years old. And it was at that youth group that I felt the calling to go into photography and videography, more specifically like telling stories using a camera. And so that was really influential for me. It wasn't just, hey, I picked up a camera and eventually I fell into it. I was actually in high school more interested at the time in going into engineering. I wanted to either work with like materials or figure out how to design prosthetics. That's really what I was interested in. And it wasn't until one night at youth group that I was on the way to small group, and I felt a very strong communication to me, I believe, from the Lord, that this is what you should do. You should be going into video editing or storytelling of some sort. And so I didn't really know what that looked like, but I just decided to follow that because I didn't want to be the one to say no. It was exciting. It was cool to me. So that's a little bit of a background as far as how I got into what I'm doing and a little bit of who I am.
Yeah. I love that. And I love your heart for storytelling. Something that we've talked about a lot is it isn't just a passion for, taking great pictures or making cool content. I mean, I think those things are awesome, and you do make great content.
Thank you.
But beyond that, it's a calling to telling stories. And I think from our conversations, I think you would agree, stories that not everybody else is telling, or stories that are being left untold. Through that, during your time at Lux, you've released 2 documentaries, one on sort of the thing that birthed NCMU, NCMC, NCMS, all of the NCM things, which was the Megazord Summit, which we did back in 2022 in Cincinnati. And then later that same year, you released a documentary for us on our friends in Uganda, Maisha's School and Holistic Foundation. Both of those can be found on a YouTube page, by the way. So tell me a little bit about like your passion and love for storytelling, and sort of like a little bit about the making of those 2 documentaries that you released.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got my first video camera whenever I was 11. That was more just for fun. I don't know that I can confidently say that my storytelling started then. But whenever it came to high school, there were film classes that were offered. I didn't take one my freshman year, but then sophomore year, it's like, okay, well, I have to take a computer credit. I'll take the digital editing class. And my love for storytelling and the medium of like filmmaking and videography really stemmed from those classes, specifically my teacher, Miss Lutz. And like, she just really instilled, I think, she needs a pay raise is I guess the short of it, is that for a high school teacher, what she was able to teach and what she was able to create and craft in the minds of her students, of understanding how to use the format to tell stories, is just something I think that most college professors wouldn't even pair up to. So that's really where the love of storytelling came from. Is she had documentary film as one of her courses. Digital editing was stuff like music videos, stop motion, things like that. Then we had TV news production, which was live studio production, which translates to what we do with Lux. And then documentary film was exactly that. We would study documentaries, and then as the project at the end of the year, you had to create a full-length documentary, which I did on the youth group, which landed me this job. So thank you. Yeah. So that really got my wheels turning of like, okay, like I understand how to use this now. What are other stories that like people haven't taken the pieces yet to weave together that could be worthy of telling? And so stuff like the Megazord, I'm pointing over here because I have the poster hung up in my room. But stuff like the Megazord documentary and then the Maisha documentary, those things really were birthed from what was seeded in high school.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So we have a lot of people who listen to this podcast who I think probably are doing some degree of shooting their own YouTube videos, cutting their own content, right? Whether they're streaming and they're cutting stuff from their streams, or they're, they're separately, filming their own YouTube videos and releasing that stuff. They're trying to reach people through some of that. What I've always found compelling from you, Gregg, is this thread that undergirds most of what you do, especially the projects that you get passionate about, which is the ability to tell a narrative through the shooting and the editing. So when you're coming to a new project, walk me through some of the things that are in your head when it comes to, the shots that you're trying to get, the scenes that you're trying to capture, and anything sort of like specific. You're working on a project right now. Literally, you're working on a new intro and outro that'll come out at our birthday for the church, for our 4th year. You kind of create a new one of those. That's a silent film in many ways, right? There's not even any talking or dialogue, but you are telling a story through this intro. It's not just a bunch of mashed up clips to you. And I think that's an important aspect for a lot of people. So help me understand a little bit of like what goes through your head when you're preparing for a new project, a new video, and how are you crafting a story through the shots and things that you're getting?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think anytime that you're watching anything video related, but particularly movies, I think do it really well, is you have to consider what's the feeling that you want to invoke in your viewer. And I think that drives a lot of what you decide to do, because if you want someone, let's say it's a feel good like movie about a dog, right? You're probably not going to choose a tone similar to what you would in like a horror film. Your shots they wouldn't have that particular feel to them because it would invoke an emotion that you're not going for. And so really, I think studying what directors choose to do, studying the actual art of cinematography is important. Everything communicates something. That's something that St. Bear's company that he works for says in essence, is that everything speaks, everything communicates something. And so if you're looking at how you're establishing the shot, what you're choosing to do, how you're choosing to frame it, you have to drive that all through the filter of what emotion is this going to create in the end product? What is the viewer going to feel whenever I do this? For example, something that you could probably just picture in your mind. If you have an extreme close-up on someone's face, that's really close. If someone was up in your face talking to you whenever you are having a conversation, you'd probably feel a little bit uncomfortable. Typically, in our culture, we stand a little bit apart whenever we're speaking to one another. It gives a little bit of comfortable room. And so whenever a shot communicates the same thing, whenever the shot's a little bit more pulled out, it typically feels a little bit more natural, a little bit more stress-free. Whereas if it's close, you're going to feel that. And so whenever you're producing and whenever you're actually shooting the stuff, you have to keep that in mind, because whenever it comes to editing, you have to use what you've shot. There's only so much that editing can fix. And so that feeling is really created in camera, in lens first. And then as far as the editing side of things, okay, like documentary for Megazord, for example, I was basically running and gunning the entire day. I was getting a wide variety of shots, but at the end of the day, it wasn't something that was scripted because it's a documentary. And so I was just capturing the moment. So in the editing process, you also have to ask, okay, what's the pace of this? Is the pace too quick for what I'm trying to convey? Do I need to slow it down in moments to give people time to really resonate with what's being said? Or is this something that, okay, I want to communicate maybe in Uganda, the kind of like the frantic nature of their life. Things are always changing. It's unpredictable. Maybe that's going to be a faster edit. Maybe what communicates that more is kind of the busy streets that I'm recording. The shot might not matter as much, but like the way that it's put together might convey that emotion better. Hopefully does that answer?
Yeah. I think it does, because what you're really getting at is it isn't just the shots that you're getting. What you're asking a question ahead of time, which is not like, okay, how cool can I make this? Or like, okay, what angle do I need my camera? Whatever. You're asking, what is the feeling that this video, when someone watches it, what is this going to invoke? And what do I want it to invoke in them? Yeah. Like what is the thing that I want them to be sensing? What is the thing that I want them to be feeling? And then you're choosing, shots, where you're getting those shots at, that sort of stuff, based off of that. Okay, walk me through, because you've talked to me about this before. Walk me through the pairing of soundtrack or music or the whatever, the audio that you're picking with a video project that you're working on. Because I know for you, oftentimes that plays a major role in your process. Yeah.
I mean, really, this mindset comes from my dad, actually. He has some professional experience in audio. And what he would argue is that audio is the foundation of what you're doing. It's really what drives the rest of it, because think of Interstellar, for example. That movie is great. The cinematography is great. The stuff that's done in camera is all really beautiful, but it would not create the same feeling unless it had that soundtrack, that like tenseness, that thing that builds. And so if you remove that, I think it removes a lot of the desired effect that you're trying to get, creating that feeling, And so for me, the process of it, of choosing the music is kind of annoying. Actually, I don't always love it. I love it whenever I find what I'm looking for, but I can't tell you how many hours I've spent just like clicking through tracks on Epidemic or somewhere else, just trying to find something that fits. And I guess to answer the part about like the decision-making process, how do I get there? Whenever I'm creating or working on a project, I try to say, okay, what was it like for me to be there? If it's a documentary style project, what was it like for me to be there and to experience this thing? And then from there, it's like, okay, well, this song doesn't really match what I felt. Like this doesn't make me feel sentimental. So maybe it doesn't work for this part. This part doesn't make me excited. Like whenever we walked through the doors and everyone was there for the first time and everyone was like hugging and meeting each other in person, like for the first time ever, that was exciting. There was something about that was just like energizing. Like you were just pumped to be in the room. It wouldn't make sense for me to play something like lo-fi. That wouldn't create the same feeling. Instead, I want to pick something that's going to make you feel like nostalgic. Like music has that feeling. And so if you're crafting a story, again, you have to ask yourself, what's the feeling? Well, I know what it was like to be there. There's other people that were there that know what it was like. And I think we all collectively would agree, like, yeah, that was a very personal, sentimental moment for us. I wouldn't want to play house EDM. Like, it just wouldn't fit. But the moments like whenever we did the live stream on Saturday where everything was like super hyped, we were all together, it was like kept really on the down low. And so the communities were just seeing it for the first time. There was a lot of excitement and anticipation for it. That's something that would be appropriate to choose music that would be more upbeat, something to get you jazzed. Like I'm ready to like play some video games. Like, let's do this. That's part of the decision-making process. It helps to know what it was like in the moment. If you're doing something like, documentary style, if you're doing a video that isn't necessarily documentary style, you can still take those concepts and apply it to it. Again, what kind of story are you trying to tell? Are you trying to pull on the heartstrings a little bit? Are you trying to get somebody excited? Is it a call to action? Do you want them to feel motivated at the end of it to do something? Or is it more entertaining? Like if you're doing something like a skit or a little bit of a bit, you might choose music that would be appropriate to drive forward humor. Might be just something funny. You're not going to play, Beethoven.
Yeah. Well, you've talked about with me a little bit, because I've learned a lot from you over the last 4 years, just about from everything from like mechanically the way a camera works and lighting works to the process of editing. And I'm thankful that I don't have to do it, quite frankly, that there are other people who are on staff like you and Andy who do the editing. But, one of the things that I have learned from you is really that the music that you pick, and it doesn't, obviously you have lots of pieces that are, put together, right? Some of the stuff you've built on your own. If you look at like the intro video for NCMS this past year, right? There's multiple things going on, fading in and out. But as you work on that, you've really helped me to understand this is like the foundation, right? This is what you're building off of. Once the music is in place, then you're pulling your clips and making your edits to allow that to make sense with the music. If you go back on on NCMS's website and you watch the intro video for our speakers and for each day, the hype video sort of at the beginning, you can kind of see that, right? Where the edits sort of jump in at significant moments in the song, right? That it kind of goes along with it. And if you're just kind of making edits and then you're trying to find a song to fit it, which is what I usually do, right? It's like I record something and then it's like, okay, where can I find a song to go in the background of this thing somehow?
And to be fair, there's moments when that's appropriate. That's fine.
Sure. Yeah. I guess if you're just probably like, right, you just want some background music. But when you're telling story, what you're listening to is just as important, or maybe more important sometimes than what you're watching, which I think is really interesting. Yeah. Let's get into the nuts and bolts a little bit, if you don't mind. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about equipment that you use. I think a lot of people are like, man, they want to get into this. It's an overwhelming process of figuring out cameras, lenses, softwares, all of those sorts of things. So give me like the 10,000 foot view of a couple pieces of equipment that you really like to use, brands that you trust. So if someone else is looking to, they want to buy some quality stuff when they're getting into this, what should they be looking at?
Yeah, I think you should be looking to just send me a DM and I'll help you out. That's kind of a big question within the photography, videography community, because everybody has their own opinion. I think at the end of the day, like, budget is a very real thing. Like, you can't spend more money than what you have. And in this field, as with, I'm sure, any other hobby or profession, there's really no limit to what you could spend. And so at the end of the day, like, a better camera does not equal better quality work or better storytelling if you don't know how to use it. And so what I would say is find something that you think that you will like that is within your price range, and then just master that as a tool. Like, if your skills are not outpacing what your equipment is able to do, then there's no need for you to upgrade. If you aren't outpacing what the limitations of the technology is, then why upgrade the technology? If you're saying like, okay, there's things that I want to do, I'm at this point now where like I'm being restricted by the gear that I have, then that's good reason to buy something new potentially. As far as the process of trying to see what would work for you, of course, there's YouTube is a great resource. I don't want to pretend like I'm the expert on it. And honestly, if you're getting into it and it's something new to you, like, use the people who have blazed the trail ahead of you and done all the work for you. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Things that you would want to look for is like, okay, what's your purpose? What are you trying to use it for? If it's live streaming, then the camera has to have certain features for it to even be considered. It has to have a clean output, the whole 9 yards. So there's things that you can start saying like, okay, what am I actually going to do with it? Does it meet my needs, and is it within the price bracket? And if you answer some of those questions, that'll help lead you. As far as brands go, like, there's the age old question for DSLRs, mirrorless cameras for consumers, Sony, Canon, or Nikon. Most people would rag on Nikon, but if you've seen any of my work or the majority of the work for Lux Digital Church, it's all been on a Nikon. So you can eat your words. Yeah, both documentaries were primarily shot on my Nikon Z6, which at this point is an outdated camera. I mean, it's still fine. It still shoots 4K, and it's, the colors I think are really, really well engineered for that camera and that sensor. But I could have upgraded 2, 3, 4 times, and I didn't, because it's meeting the needs of what I'm doing. At least right now, it's meeting my needs. And so there's no reason for me to spend $2,000-3,000 on something new, even though my skills could be at that level. Like, the work that I'm doing isn't outpacing what is required of the gear. So there's that. As far as audio goes, I think brand helps, because if you can get behind their mission and their values, as with most other brands in life, not just like equipment and gear, then you're more likely to be excited to use it. And that's what you want to do at the end of the day. Like, you want to be excited to use the stuff that you've spent money on, and you should go out and create with it and make sure that you're doing something good with it. So, for example, if you like Shure, look at their product line, see if there's something that meets your needs and you would get excited about. I'm sure people would be pumped if they got a Shure SM7B just delivered to their house. They would probably want to just start a podcast, right? Because they've seen it, they know it, they like it. Well, maybe that's outside your price range, so you can look at their other product lineup and find something that works. If you don't like Shure, look elsewhere. Sennheiser has great stuff. There's other companies that make consumer products, and just find something that you would be excited to use. There was something else I wanted to add in there. Oh, B&H, if you are excited about gear, is kind of a death trap. It's wonderful. I freaking love B&H. There was a season in my life where I would wake up and the first thing I would do is open my phone, go to B&H, and look at what the sales were, just because I was addicted to it. But B&H is a great resource. If you have questions about what you should get, call them, B&H Photo Video. They're based out of New York, and they will walk you through the process of finding something. And they're not just going to try to sell you something for the sake of making the sale. They want to make sure that it fits your needs. So again, use the other resources available. Don't try to just like shoot into the wind and buy the creator kit because you're excited. That might not be a good fit for you.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't recommend enough. I was not a believer. I was not a believer, Greg. When we started, you're like, just call B&H. I was not a believer. And now when we come into a tech issue that I have to solve here in the studio, I just call B&H. I'm on hold for like 2 minutes, and then I talk to one of their professionals. They get me to the right department quickly, and they're fantastic. I'm just sitting there on their website. They walk me through everything that I need, help me fill up the cart, submit bids. And if you are a nonprofit, like if you're a legitimate nonprofit, you can apply to them as a nonprofit and get separate bids that are better deals, especially the more equipment that you're ordering, which is great.
Yeah. Like the cool thing about them, even if you're not a nonprofit, like I've done a lot of comparison in prices. They almost always have the best price. So you can shop with them with pretty good ease of mind, knowing that you have a good deal.
Yeah. I will say this too, if you're looking for just, you're trying to save a buck and you want to look, you can look at eBay. eBay has some good refurbished or eBay certified equipment out there that might be a couple years older, that if you're looking to get into it, you're not trying to spend too much money. We've purchased some stuff off of eBay here at Lux over the years. Is that Nikon from eBay, the one you're showing off there?
Yeah, this is a film camera I got from Nikon. It's like beautiful, and it's from the 80s, and it costs like a fraction of what it would have.
Yeah. So that's another good resource. As we're getting ready to land the plane here, Greg, you had talked a little bit about inspiration. So this is a two-part question. One, you had said, hey, if you're looking to learn, YouTube's a great resource. We hear that a lot on this podcast, but YouTube's a big place. So who has been the most helpful for you when it comes to people that you stay tuned into on YouTube? Second question, what directors, musicians, whomever, whatever, editors have been an inspiration to you that you might, because I know you're a big movie head, love TV, love, like good TV shows, you love great movies. And that's that's a catalyst for your family as well. So what directors or movies have been inspiring for you in the content that you make? And then, what YouTubers would you recommend people tune into? And it could be off YouTube. It could just be somebody else. Maybe they have a website or something that you would, suggest for people trying to get better. Yeah.
YouTube has been really cool for me. I've watched it's weird. Like you feel like you get to know a creator, even if you haven't like talked to them ever. But I've gotten to know the style and like the integrity of some of the creators, I guess. And so I trust their word a little bit more. Some of those being Peter McKinnon. He's based out of Canada. Same with Matti Haapoja. That's spelled Mattiahaapoja, something like that. It's a Finnish name. Anyways, those two have been really influential as far as the video side of things goes. They're great. Peter has a background more so in photography, and he uses video as a way to explore that area of work. Matty is really kind of filmmaker heavy. He's more focused on that than he is the photos. So it depends on what you're looking for. Those two have been great. I would trust their word pretty much with anything that they say related to the craft. And they're just genuinely like down to earth, good guys. Marquez Brownlee, I think his approach to how he produces things is one that I haven't seen like hardly anywhere else in YouTube. And that's probably the reason why he's one of the biggest creators. Like his desire and pursuit of quality is insane. Like I can't imagine the amount of time it takes to record a single one of his videos, because he has his standards and he says each one of these videos that we put out is going to meet these standards, and then he ships it. And so if you're wanting to get, I guess, maybe inspiration from someone, look at the quality of work and just the ethic in which he works. Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD. Personally, I also like Corridor Crew. They'll probably be the last one that I list. They do CGI and visual effects. They're visual effects artists. What's cool about them is that it was just Sam and Nico. I believe that they were friends in high school and college, and then they started this VFX house out in LA, and it's just grown, and they do some really awesome work. I think for them, what is motivating about them is that they explain the behind the scenes and the actual process and workflow. And so if you're trying to maybe pick up on some tips on how to create a pipeline, how to actually get from point A to point B or point Z, they're really good because they're efficient. They are creative. They're a lot of fun. Like, they show you that you can do these things and also enjoy like the work aspect of it. So those are probably the top four. I would also say Mark Rober is just a lot of fun. I just like watching him. So he's a great example of how you can do something without being at the highest quality, because he for a while he used cameras and stuff that weren't top of the line, but it didn't matter because his stories were good. And so he's a great example of how story drives something. If your story is crap, then nobody's going to watch. People will forgive, poor camera quality if the story grips them. So yeah, that's YouTube. As far as movies and directors, Christopher Nolan, I mean, it's funny saying it on the podcast because, like, I'm sure there's plenty of you that don't know me, but like, I talk about Christopher Nolan all the time. It's like, it's like beating a dead horse. But no, he really has a knack for pacing and storytelling in his films. The rise and fall in his stories is something that should be studied if you're interested in doing something like that. Not even just feature films, but just like a 5-minute video. It still has to have a rise and a fall. It still has to have a conflict, and there's going to be a main character. So if you're going to study somebody, study him. He does a great job. Cinematography is top notch there. That's a great example of how cinematography can help drive the story as well. As far as musicians, I have the CD over there, but I'm not going to grab it. John Bellion, he makes amazing music. He has behind the scenes in his process posted on YouTube for a lot of his music. Please go watch those behind the scenes. If you want to see a creative just like get into his craft, and he's a Christian. He doesn't make Christian music as far as the genre goes, but you can see the themes of him like wrestling with humanity and also turning to God as his savior and his Lord, but also recognizing that like Jesus is the one that has blessed him with the gifts and abilities that he has. Like, that behind the scenes process of seeing someone with that calling and just like being so passionate about it is, I mean, I don't know, you can't help but be inspired, even if it's not your taste in music. Like, he just gets into it. Like, there's nothing that will stop him. I'm sure that was great for the recording.
Oh, it sounded fine.
Yeah. There's nothing that'll stop him once he's like in his lane. Like, if he's fixed on something, man, he just goes for it. So I would say if you watch those people, you will probably get at least a fundamental and a foundational, I don't know what I was going to say after that. You will get a foundation of how to like start into the process of creating something that will invoke a feeling in your audience.
Awesome. Well, Gregg, thank you so much for being willing to come onto the show. These last handful of episodes that I've recorded have been a little different. They've been a little bit less sort of like, tell us your life story, and a little bit more like, let's get in the nuts and bolts of how to do what we're doing and do it better. And I am always inspired by and in awe of our team, because our team has just, they've really gone above and beyond. And I think anybody from the out, like, they make me look, you guys make me look really good, right? You and Dalton and Andy make me look really good. If they,
so many
people, what was that?
I said, so does your preaching.
Oh, well, thank you. But I mean, in so many ways, right? From thumbnails that are created to graphic design, to video cuts and editing, to content that goes out, right? That has your guys' hands all over it. And I'm so very, very thankful to have the team with me that I have, to be able to craft a story and a narrative about Lux that's being put out to the world for people to tune into and for people to come and participate in. So thank you for your endless hours and time in and energy put into documentaries and late nights and edits and the skills that you bring to the table. We really appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the show today and putting some of those things to practice here and helping other people.
Yeah. Is there one last thing I could share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think what is so cool about this format, what's so cool about this kind of line of work, if you want to call it that, as far as video work, video editing, storytelling, is the fact that God himself is a storyteller, and you can see the story arc throughout Scripture. You can see the story arc throughout just life in general. Like Jesus is coming to earth. Jesus is doing what he did, the sacrifice that he made, and the redemption process of that. It follows kind of the story beats that we see in a lot of other things. And so we really are just mimicking what our Creator has done best. And so I think that's something that is really important to remember, is that like God has told the best story. And so us telling anything else, it can follow that and it will make it stronger simply because like God did it first. The other thing is that my teacher, Miss Lutz, the one from high school, she really helped me in the process of the Megazord documentary. I called her on the phone. I was really struggling with like trying to pull everything together. I was like, it's in my mind, but I don't know how to get it onto the timeline. I don't know how to create what I'm trying to tell. And she really just helped drive home the fact that like cut out redundancy. If something is redundant, you don't need to keep telling the same thing over and over. Like use the time that you have to be as pointed as you can be. You want to be like a surgeon with a scalpel. You want to be pretty precise. The other thing is that like put the best of what you have at the beginning. Like not maybe the very beginning, but let's say your piece of work is 30 minutes long. Put it within like the first 5 minutes. Like what is going to grip somebody that makes them want to stay throughout the entire thing? You don't have to spoil it. You don't have to spoil the resolution or like the result, but put it at the beginning, grip them, and then that'll make them want to stay for the rest of the story. Because I think what a lot of people would struggle with is they put all the time and energy into making a great video, but then people only watch like the first 1-2 minutes, maybe. And so what are you going to do to grip them? Like people will have all these other like tips and tricks. Put the best thing at the beginning, grip them right whenever they're there, and then like keep them throughout the entire thing. Give them breaks, give them times where they can rest and think about what they've watched, and then build up that excitement again. And I guess that's my like filmmaking tip.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Well, Gregg, once again, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate having you here. And listen, if you've been tuned into the NCMU podcast, we also have a Discord, the NCMC, the Nerd Culture Ministry Collective Discord. We'd love to have you come over there. We have some exciting stuff coming up in the near future this summer, launching some new networks and opening that up to a lot more people. And so if you're looking to get connected to the community, don't do this alone. Also, coming up in this upcoming fall of 2025, we're planning on being at Exponential West this year. For like a pop-up nerd culture ministry thing. And then keep tuned to our socials and stuff. Links will be in the description of this episode because we're going to be hopefully announcing formally and opening up registration for Nerd Culture Ministry Summit 2026, which would be really exciting. We're going to be back in Colorado Springs. So that's the plan and that's the hope. So hopefully that stuff's coming out here pretty soon and you can tune into it. So make sure you tune into our socials and get into the Discord so you can register for Nerd Culture Ministry. So I'm going to come hang out with me and Gregg in Colorado Springs in Garden of the Gods.
Let's go.
In 2026. You're not going to want to miss that. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening, and be sure to come back for the next one.